What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of GRID Encore. We took the live off GRID Live Encore because, let's face it, our coverage of these series really isn't live. I'm Ben Schneider, joined as always by Brandon Crossland, and look who's here, our friend Matthew Bro. He's not on the air very much these days, but he's done a wonderful job writing our weekly NASCAR recaps for us on the GRID Ranking website, so make sure you check those out if you haven't already. But Matthew, great to see you, man. I know you have a lot of thoughts on the All-Star race, but how are you doing? Good to have you on the Encore show again.
Awesome. A lot better now that I'm able to be a part of this with you guys. So really appreciate you for letting me on. I know people only see my writing nowadays, just so much else going on in the world, right? So I'm happy to free up a little bit of time to be able to help you guys out with tonight's broadcast.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matthew, for coming by. And we appreciate all you do populating our GRID ranking website. You do a fantastic job on there.
Thank you, guys.
Great to have you back on. And Brandon, how are you doing? No, we've got to be excited for month of May here. Indy 500 qualifying wrapped up this week, and got a lot to talk about here on Encore tonight. Yeah,
very, very blessed by the end of the month of May. Just a wonderful time to be a race fan, and it's just everywhere you look. We got the qualifying going at Indianapolis and North Wilkesboro, Charlotte, and then we're going to have the Monaco pace laps here in the next weekend. To complete the Triple Crown. I don't care how boring it is. I love it too. Monaco, Indy, Charlotte, it's all wonderful.
Yeah, great weekend of racing coming up here, and we're going to get into this past weekend, a little bit of a teaser with everything going on at the Speedway this week, and of course the NASCAR All-Star festivities at North Wilkesboro and some other races as well. But first, as always, I want to give a shout out to our Patreon investors, Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to us, and it's what allows us to continue to grow what we're trying to build here at GRID Network. It's what will allow me to be on site at Portland. Hard to believe I've got a flight in just a week and a half to go back out there with Joe this year again to cover the racing out there, NASCAR weekend. So thank you so much. And if you would like to join them tonight, if you like what you see, you can consider clicking the link in the description box below, or if you'd rather make a one-time donation instead, we have the Super Chats enabled on YouTube, or you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee link as well. And you can always show your support by simply following us on social media. Thank you again for 1,000 subscribers. We're well on our way to the next 1,000 already. So thank you all so much. Now, our friend Joshua Birch couldn't be here live tonight, but he is watching here. Sent us this nice chat message here at the start of the show. He had some thoughts on the Formula 2 and Formula 3 races at Imola this weekend, and he recorded about 10 minutes worth of those thoughts, and we will play those for you right now. Here's Josh Birch with an update on Imola.
Well, hello, everyone. And first of all, I want to make apologies for not being here live, but you might notice I'm wearing a headset. We've just come off air for IndyCar practice, and I've not fully, but I've damaged my voice. And it's very difficult to speak, and it's very difficult to keep it going. So while I've still got my voice in some respect, it's croaky in areas, and I can't go too loud. I'm sort of having to find the right pitch. I thought I'd tell you what's happened in the Formula 2 and Formula 3 events. So let's start off with Formula 2 and their sprint race that was on Saturday in the gap between practice 3 and qualifying for Formula 1. Paul Aron made a great getaway from third as well, getting behind as well, and then ahead of teammate Colapinto and Emil Cordial. Aron jumps through the centre of the track, takes the lead as well, but there was a safety car immediate as there was a massive accident across into Tamburello as well. It was all started as well. Roman Stanek, Isaac Hadjar got loose as well. The Campos driver spun into the path of Joshua Dirtsgen and Enzo Fittipaldi into the corner. Dennis Hauger then hit Stanek as well while trying to take avoiding action. So 5 drivers all sort of coming into grief at Tamburello, just going straight across as well. That took out the safety car. We all thought it would be red flag. It ended up being the pace car as well. Race resumed on lap 6. Paul Aron extended his lead over Cordial, but a lap later he went wide at the exit of Ravazza 1, and that gave Colapinto a chance to overtake him down the straight towards Tamburello. He took the lead, and by lap 9, Colapinto as well was closing the gap to Aron, who made a mistake. Cordial, having dropped back from the 2 as well, he was under pressure from Maloney, Behrman and Bortoletto on the race. Lap 12 took us with Colapinto inside the DRS range of Aron. Maloney was attacking Cordial. Both high-tech cars were very difficult to overtake, though, as well. So we saw Behrman under pressure from Bortoletto as Barnard. Maloney finally made the move on Cordial, though, around the outside at Villeneuve. Fantastic. The Villeneuve came 3 and 4, just right around the outside and got the move done brilliantly on lap 22. Took his 4th podium of the year. Colapinto closed on as well and made the last lap manoeuvre around the outside at Tamburello. Gave him as well the first victory of the season. So it was basically like we had with Verstappen. Very much a close fought action. Colapinto hounding Paul Aron in the last couple of laps. It took a while for the race to sort of kick in. It was very much a snooze fest in the sprint, with them all being on the medium tyre. So round the outside on the last lap, and it was a fantastic move. Colapinto taking the win as well, saying, I'm super happy. First win in Formula 2. It's a very special day for me and for every Argentinian that has been supporting me so far. I'm so proud of the team. Very proud of everyone who's been supporting me. Thank you, thank you. Thank you to all the fans that let us hope for more wins in the next few races as well. So Colapinto taking the win as well from that one, with Paul Aron being in 2nd position. In the feature race on Sunday, Bortoletto had a slow getaway and dropped down to 4th. Behrman got the lead. Hadjar went up to 2nd, and Joshua Durskin went up into 3rd position as well, from 5th on the grid. Very great job from him. Behrman, though, didn't pull away from Hadjar, and Hadjar was still within DRS range at the end of lap 4, and at lap 6 was when the first pit stops came in. Those who started on the soft tyres changed, so Hadjar, Durskin swapping the super soft for the medium. Also came into pit lane was Maloney, Stanek, and they both jumped ahead of Hadjar as well coming in. Behrman led Bortoletto, Colapinto, Aron into the pit lane on the next lap, but this is where it gets interesting. He stalled it. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. So Behrman went right to the back of the field and ended up a complete lap down. So bad job there from Behrman. As well, he dropped to the back of the field. Super soft drivers pitted by lap 10. It left the prime runners out front, with Mayo Cordial now back in the lead. Remember, he had the pole for the sprint on the Saturday race. From Marti, Correa, Martins, Maney, and Villa Gomez. But then when we came into the pit lane as well, it was quite an interesting run, because when on lap 30, when the alternative tyres needed to change, it was a bit of a switcheroo. I hate saying that because of David Croft, but it was, because what we ended up happening was Cordial had his tyre changed at the back. The wheel nut wasn't fully attached. It came loose, shot down the pit lane, jumped over Marty's stationary new tyre, bounced over towards the pit wall and landed safely, lucky no one was injured. But because of that, the mechanic who was changing Marty's tyres, who was running 2nd at the time, didn't have enough time to pick up the gun to attach the wheel to the car with the nut. So then Marty went off, and a 2nd wheel at the same time was loose in the pit lane. Shades of 1994 flashing in everybody's minds as well. But on one lap, 1 and 2 in the race were out with no rear tyres and the nuts failing. That is, both stewards been said about an unsafe release. It was insane. But what that did was change it over for the leaders at the front of the field as well to completely change over. So Bortoletto closed right up to Hadjar, but it wasn't too good enough as well. So Bortoletto got the win with Hadjar 2nd, and Joshua Durskin taking 3rd position as well. A fantastic podium as well. Isaac Hadjar as well saying, really happy the feature race win today, of course. I just said Bortoletto, when I meant Isaac Hadjar got the win for Bortoletto in 2nd. Hadjar said, really happy with the feature race win today after yesterday's disappointment. Unbelievable job by the team. It was really intense race with Gabriel. Yeah, so Hadjar went round the outside, got ahead of Bortoletto in the penultimate stages and took the win as well. So well done to Isaac Hadjar. I'm running on very poor. This does hurt a lot. So sorry if I'm making a couple of errors there. Trying to remember what happened yesterday. It's been a busy weekend. In Formula 3, though, in the sprint race, let's move on to that. Casper Sutra had Leon tucked into the slipstream from lights out with the toe as well. And we had Leon round the outside, getting ahead of Casper Sutra into the first chicane as well. Chaminitsi followed through to take 2nd place. Goethe moved up as well. But then there was a couple of safety cars. It very much was a safety car event. the safety car came out, though, because Mari Boyer was spinning and stuck in the gravel. Then Leon led the restart before another safety car was back out on lap 5 as Callum Vosin hit the exit of Tozer as well. And it was all caused by Charlie Wirtz, who was then given a 10-second time penalty for that incident as well. When we restarted for the third time, Leon didn't get the same launch as well on lap 8, and Traminizzi, but he couldn't find room to get past into Tamburello as well. Metacarthy went spinning into the gravel at the slightest of touches with Dino Beganovic as well, and that was the third safety car of the race as well. When we got going on lap 11, Leon got a better restart for the third time, held the lead comfortably. Mini was tucked up behind Lawrence Van Hopen, but couldn't get through at turn 5 and turn 6. Leon, over a second clear, meant that Traminizzi was under pressure from Goethe, and as well, coming in, there was a fourth safety car on lap 13, but it was very quickly withdrawn as well after we had a few problems as well. So then Leon managed to restart perfectly, hold the lead. But then it was weird because we had a virtual safety car because we had Browning and Beganovic as well just having a bit of problems. But the virtual safety car came in as well. On that, the virtual safety car got to put in the last lap for an instant in Tamburello. That was really a safety car. And then it was brought in with one sector to go. And that allowed Leon, who was leading, not to lead, but Ollie Goethe to get the lead away from him at the restart, and Goethe took the win. Only for Goethe and Traminizzi to get 5-second time penalties for safety car procedure infringements, handing the win back to Noel Leon. Then that got changed and the penalties removed, which meant that Goethe did win the sprint race. It took us until the morning to get all that sorted out. Really not good look for Formula 3 there as well. In the race, though, as well, it was in the feature race, Metacarfu brilliantly held off Goethe. Goethe, who made it up from 6th back up to the 2nd position. He led for half the race as well. But Santiago Ramos, who was on pole position after Friday's qualifying, led the 3 Tridents down towards turn 1 as well. Metacarfu went round the outside, took the lead immediately. Folleroli was in there too. Goethe followed up with Alvin Lindblad as well. Folleroli had the DRS. He went back up, but Metacarfu already had the lead of the race, and by the end of it as well, it was a great win for Metacarfu. His first ever win and a Trident home win as well on home soil. Goethe second, Folleroli in third as well, but Browning took important points with 4th as well, which means it's very close in the Formula 3 standings going into the next race. So there you go. That's everything that happened in Formula 2 and Formula 3 over the weekend. And as Murray would say, I've got to stop now. I really have got a lump in my throat.
Thank you for that, Josh. We appreciate it. And again, more coverage of Formula 3 and Formula 2 all throughout the year. Grateful to have Josh back for his notes and his coverage of those series. So stay tuned for that. We move on now to our main event for the evening of a NASCAR Cup Series All-Star Race. And we once again saw a dominant driver. Joey Logano led all but one lap last night, but it was a fight that stole the show and all the headlines. On lap 2, Kyle Busch retaliated against Ricky Stenhouse Jr., turning Stenhouse nearly head-on into the turn 2 wall. Stenhouse ended up driving the car back and parking in Kyle Busch's pits, waited for the race to end, and then a fight broke out in the garage after the race. Stenhouse said, "I'll wreck you at Charlotte." Busch came back with his own fighting words. Matthew, I know you have some thoughts on what happened and took place. You were very animated in our group chat last night. What do you make of what went down between Stenhouse and Busch, and do you think it's something that is worth NASCAR stepping in here to try to mitigate the situation?
Well, one thing, I think absolutely that the event that was last night needed something like this to happen, and I think we all had that feeling after lap 2. Unfortunately, we had to wait another 198 laps. But I think NASCAR does have to step in, unfortunately, because you have to, when you set a precedent, you have to follow it. So obviously last year with Matt Crafton and Nick Sanchez as well, with the threats and stuff like that, I assume Ricky Stenhouse's father is going to get his hard card pulled, I believe, or if that's what it's called. I apologize if it's not, just because of that fight. But I mean, I like, with all due respect, I think Kyle Busch is the GOAT. I think he's really the greatest to ever do it in this sport. But sometimes when you run your mouth like that, like Kyle Busch has about Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for as long as he has. I mean, I remember videos where Kyle Busch was talking to kids, calling him Ricky Spinhouse and stuff like that. I don't know if you remember that. Like, this wasn't just the lap 2. This was years of Ricky Stenhouse finally being like, okay, now it's time. This is an exhibition race. This doesn't really matter. I'm going to really show my displeasure with Kyle. And obviously, I think there's a lot going on between both of them are not having good seasons by their own specific standards. Obviously, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. last year, I think he was out of the 16 guys that made the playoffs, he ended up being the only one that wasn't in the top 16 initially in points because he fell out the last race. But he was consistent, more consistent than we've seen him since he won 2 races in 2017, I believe it was. So for him, he's got to be frustrated. He's down in 24th, 25th in points. He's mad. Kyle Busch, who has not found a rhythm at all, even though he's in the playoff race as of right now, that's bad for him. For him to be where he is currently, like 13th, 14th, whatever he is, for him to have a bad season like that says a lot about how frustrated he's got to be with that. But like, to answer your question about that, I really do think NASCAR needs to step in. It's great for the media attention. I know Jordan Bianchi from The Athletic had like 4.2 million views on his X post of the video of the fight from his team. Obviously, we saw Davey got knocked down. Hope he's okay. We saw the memes about Bob Pockrass. Stuff like this is great for the sport. But unfortunately, we're talking a lot about the fight and not about the product that happened on the track. So I know we'll get into that a little bit. But the fight, I think NASCAR has to do some stuff. They set precedents with fights that have happened over the last couple of years. They have to follow it, regardless of if it's an exhibition race or not.
Yeah. My emotions on this are pretty scattered and not very put together still. If what you count as a good race is a lot of lead changes, then you didn't think last night was a good race. But if you thought good racing was a track that hasn't been repaved in forever, and they do a really good job at it and make it that kind of like some way they sort of like retro restored, already put some age on it. It seemed it didn't feel like brand new asphalt, and they kept some of the character of the track. And you got all these battles in between the pack, not from the driver in the front. I think it was a pretty good race. Of course, the car is still needing help on the short tracks. That's no secret. And when I hear that people are saying like, "Well, they don't," it's the All-Star race. There's no points involved. They shouldn't be just following each other in a line like that. Like, I'm pretty sure they're giving it all they can, and they're racers. They're not going to just sit in line for 100 laps. That's not what they're trying to do. They're giving it everything they've got, but the car does not allow them to pass. Like their talent is behind the wheel. Given Kyle Larson in the last 30 or 20 laps, he was booking it on the restart and just giving those the soft tires all they could have, taking the low line through and kind of dive bombing his way through, giving it everything he could there to battle up there with the top two, and finished with a 4th place finish after all the media attention he got throughout the day. But that's a story for another time. But yeah, now to the fight. Yeah, Davey Siegel, a nice pillow for Kyle Busch to lay his head, and then Bob Pockrass, bless his soul, out there giving us all the meme material. I'm with Dale Earnhardt Jr. About the sealing the tunnels, and because you might get this kind of thing more often. But at the same time, I don't want that to be what we're all about. I get we need to have it sometimes, and yes, you got to stay consistent as an officiating body, or you're just a fun house. Are you a sport, or are you a fun house? If you're going to be a fun house, then you're going to have your WWE undisputed heavyweight champion keeping people off the hauler, like that one Kyle Busch crew member. There's just a lot that went into this, and I'm not sure I'm happy about all of it, but I don't think it was as bad of a race as some people are making of it when you just look at, there was no lead changes. It was terrible.
Well, to be fair, I think Kyle Busch was actually WWE 24/7 champion for like 24 hours or something. That was the whole
Yeah, he
deal
was.
after he won his second Cup championship. I know nothing about the world of wrestling or WWE or any of that, but I do remember that being a thing for a little while on NASCAR Twitter. I think Michael Waltrip was the referee or something like that, some sort of crazy deal. But
Like a NASCAR night or something stupid.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Matthew. I think that there is certainly a precedent that was set last year with the Grafton deal, and if NASCAR were to go so far as a suspension here, I don't know if that's necessarily warranted because I mean, look, I understand people brought up the '79 Daytona 500. Like fights have been a part of this sport, ever since it was put on the map with that most famous fight with Yarborough and Allison. But I will take drivers exchanging words and even landing a punch or two outside the cars than trying to retaliate with their cars. I understand that you're not hitting the speeds at North Wilkesboro, but you're hitting at certain other tracks. But I think it's certainly the danger element of that can't be understated no matter where you are. So I think that retaliation or right rear hooking, not that that's what Kyle Busch did. He just got into Stenhouse, and if anything, Stenhouse I think put himself in the wall when he overcorrected. He certainly had some help with Busch instigating that, but I think that if anything, maybe just I don't know if Stenhouse is going to escape a fine for landing a punch on Kyle or whatever the case may be. And of course, I hate seeing crew members and media members as well. I think like you said, Matthew, Davey Siegel got a cut on his elbow or something. He posted to social media. Bob Pockris, that face is going to be a meme for the rest of the year, no doubt. Him getting caught up in all that. So of course,
profile picture.
Yeah. New profile picture. There you go.
With it, so
yeah. So I mean, you never want to see those kinds of people getting involved in stuff like this. But again, I think in a lot of ways it kind of saved the evening because and we can transition here. Brandon, you brought this point up as well. I guess I'm kind of in the. I don't fully agree with your take. I don't think I voted no on the Gluck poll. I have to confess. And I think last I checked, there were 27,000 votes, and it was 37 yes and 63 no. So a strong majority, almost 2/3 are voting no on that poll here. And listen, I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on this as well. But you guys know me, people who've been watching this show, that I'm still holding out hope for Nazareth, right? I mean, you were not going to find, from 2018 to 2022, there was hardly a bigger cheerleader than me for bringing back North Wilkesboro and investing in the Speedway, saving the Speedway, revitalizing the Speedway. I could not be happier that it is back. I love the fact that we got, Cars Tour races there and, the Truck Series is back there. Let's see if I can find the comment here. John Bender saying NASCAR needs to bring the Xfinity Series to North Wilkesboro next year. I'd be down for that 100%. But it's not a track issue. It's an issue with the car. It's an issue with the short track package. And just for whatever reason, even, the option tire, I think, I appreciate that we tried it for a second time, but I think it's been a much better idea in theory than an actual rule change that we've brought out in execution here. I don't think it's worked nearly as well as intended. And it just leaves me to wonder, the whole idea of an all-star race has been, I guess up until the last couple of years, what better place to host it than, saving the Speedway and bringing back North Wilkesboro. But, it wasn't that long ago. People were talking about, do we even need this event to begin with? Do we even need to be running exhibition races like this? We cannot continue to go back here, and we are going to go back here next year, but we cannot have 2/3 of the fan base walking away from that saying, yeah, I don't think that was a great race. The amount of money that has been invested into North Wilkesboro to bring that Speedway back from the dead, and how many people were rallying for that and arguing for that over the years, and the fact that Marcus Smith put his money where his mouth is, and by the way, did a great job this weekend too, because they got absolutely hammered with rain on Saturday, and you saw the tires floating in the infield and everything. I mean, they just got absolutely hammered with weather, and he did a great job getting the Speedway back up and running yesterday. But I mean, it's very frustrating to see poll results like that. And for me as a race fan to, kind of be in agreement with the majority, Brandon, I get what you're saying. I think it was a step up from last year. What Kyle Larson did on that last stint on the option tire, I think, proved that passing was possible. But, most short track races, if a guy's leading, a guy should not be leading 199 of 200 laps at this race. Unless he's got the most dominant, unstoppable car, and is just absolutely driving away from everybody to the point where he's almost lapping the field. And vast majority of the cars finished on the lead lap in this race. I feel like there's still a lot of work to be done, but I'm curious, what you guys have thoughts on this. Matthew, what did you think of the on-track product and what we saw last night?
Yeah, it's a tough thing because I really do agree with both of you in a sense. I feel like it's all great on paper, right? Repaving a historic racetrack for an all-star race with new option tires. But just unfortunately, it's just not the right time for NASCAR where they are with this car. So you can't pass, unfortunately. I think the biggest battle of the whole race was Bubba last 30 laps of the first 100. That was the biggest battle I think we saw the entire race. And knowing how Logano was so fast and he couldn't get around a car that was about to go a lap down with Michael McDowell as well, obviously, too. But it's tough. I mean, I think I don't like going to with Bowman Gray as well. I don't really like that idea, to be honest with you. I don't think NASCAR at this point where they are with the next gen should focus on tracks. The product's just not there. You have had great Kansas, Las Vegas, even Texas has been a lot better, I feel. Look, you got to focus now intermediates. I mean, you have Chicagoland and Kentucky ready. Somebody can, if you can get the contract back, inevitably they're not on the schedule. But with this package, a race like Chicagoland or Kentucky would be so much better for anyone watching this. But I know I get North Wilkesboro back in, I guess, when the track was prominent, most of the race was not single file, but the leader would kind of run away with it. This, you can have the leader really far ahead and there's no passing, but it's like the leader can't get around 15th place, but he's still farther ahead of everyone because then second place can't get around 16th place, who's also a lap down, so on and so forth. So the product, I think it just looks so good on paper, but it was quite disappointing to watch. I mean, Logano dominated 199 to 200, and the only time he didn't, I believe, was Christopher Bell barely beat him back to the line or something like that. So that shows that Logano was just a mere inches away from leading the entire race, and that's something you do not want to see at an all-star race for NASCAR. But I guess they're lucky enough. It was a big fight that brought a lot of attention to it. I just think their focuses should not be on the short tracks right now. I think that's an issue that needs to be resolved. But if you want good product I think they need to shift their focus to the intermediates for here coming out. I know the All-Star Race is next year again in North Wilkesboro. Switch it up, throw Xfinity there, throw the trucks there. Even if ARCA could somehow be there, I know Car Store was supposed to be there. Try to really get the track involved, but I don't know if we should be cup racing here, especially never again in terms of a full schedule. I don't think 36 cup cars on this track at once will be a good idea. But sorry for my ramble, but that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I mean, you hear all the cries of why can't we have a points race here? Why can't we have a points race here? But really, I'm with you, Matthew. I look at the stalls, and it just doesn't seem feasible. There's a reason it's an all-star race here and not the full thing. And I mean, I remember as well as you guys just a few years ago saying how intermediate tracks are trash. And I mean, it's just the ebb and flow of as we keep changing. I mean, it's the last gen of the car, but I mean, as we keep, things will constantly change between Goodyear and sanctioning body. The car will continue to evolve throughout the years. And before you know it, we'll be fine going back to short tracks somehow, some way. We can't see it now, but it'll come soon enough. But the problem is that's not how economics works, is it? We've got North Wilkesboro. Marcus Smith put his money where his mouth was, and here we are. We've got to have a good, substantial product that's going to, keep them in the black. And you can't do it with the Cup car right now. But they're working as hard as they can to make sure they can, because I mean they went ahead and took the gamble and put it as the All-Star race for the immediate next year.
Yeah, well, on that note, we'll talk about next year here in just a moment. But just to bounce off of what Matthew said, Brandon, I'll go to you first on this one. We've heard some cries for an Xfinity race. Trucks have obviously put on a decent show. We've got weekly racing there. Again with the Cars Tour and some series like that. Do you think that this place needs a cup race to be successful, because before they revitalized it, that was the argument all this time. It was like, look, you can host a truck race here. You don't need to bring the Speedway back to the point where it's hosting 2 cup races a year, but let's at least reopen it to get a truck race. Do we even need cup cars here at North Wilkesboro anymore for this saving the Speedway to be a success?
I mean, as long as you sell the tickets, I guess, and if you make it worth the while. I mean, if we decide that the cup cars have served their purpose here, fine. I mean, we don't have too many of those events anymore. You're about to head out there with Joe on our behalf to Portland. That's a prime example of an event where the Xfinity Series is the marquee event of that weekend. But we don't have many of those anymore. We used to have plenty of those. Nashville used to be one of those, and unfortunately, it was put in the purgatory of sorts. Of it was destined to be that, and then we died in 2012 and came back some 10 years later. I don't wish that for North Wilkesboro, but I mean, if they can't improve things, that they'll have to be what they do, because I mean, they've spent way too much money on this product. I don't know how you improve it, really. I mean, the All-Star Race it's an exhibition. It's meant to have elements in it that you don't have for the rest of the points-paying events. I mean, the coolest thing I've seen in recent years was the underglow at Bristol. I was not a fan of the backwards numbers on the car. I much prefer, if we have to move it one way. I'm glad we've got it here in the frontwards area, but that's neither here nor there.
I still say let the teams choose. You let the sponsors decide how they want to utilize that space, and you'd rather it be uniform, Brandon?
Yes, because then they would all do you want someone to have it like in like the Canadian Tire, the Canadian Series, like style in like the back quarter panel, or
yeah. Well, some of the K&N teams, they did the quarter panels great. But it's when you put the teams into a box and say, like, you have to, like, I hate to throw them under the bus, but JTG Doherty, like, I mean, they just, they've got a different scheme almost every week because of how their business deal with Kroger works, and that's fine. But they do not always do a great job of utilizing that space. But they're put into a box because it has to be the same. I think if you give the teams creative control, most teams will probably go back to putting it in the center. But if teams can make that space work, let the designers run wild. That's what I say.
I hate to go to stick and ball, but you look over there, you have a place where you put your number for all teams, and that's it. There's no free will there, because
if you get into the NBA, that would be a little bit debatable with some of the jersey redesigns. But
besides the NBA, look at the NFL, look at the MLB. This is where the numbers go.
Fair enough. Matthew, you have any thoughts on if cup's necessary? I know you kind of touched on that in the last bit here.
Say that first part again. I'm sorry, about what being necessary.
That's right. The question is, do you think cup is necessary for North Wilkesboro reopening to be a success? Whether it's the All-Star Race or a points race or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely not. I don't think I think it's more here for a nostalgia factor than anything. Unfortunately, that's the case. I think it's great. The Truck Series, I feel, is a great product. I think Xfinity would be even better, because Xfinity is the best of all the series in terms of the racing product. I just don't know how necessary North Wilkesboro really is. I feel like we're all turning into like the Clash that was at the Coliseum. It's like, it's awesome on paper, but it's like, now after 2 years, after 3 years, is this a necessary thing to be a part of NASCAR? And it is, for, like, in terms of money making and TV, pitch it, marketing standpoints, it's absolutely necessary. But in terms of the product of actually what's being missed by us, not really. No, I don't think it should be a cup race personally. But then again, it stopped being a cup race before it even was thought of. Was it 1996 before it was gone for a while, and then it came back?
Texas,
it was -5. So yeah. So I wasn't even existing yet, but so I can't really have an opinion more or less about what the racing was like back then. But yeah, -5 years old when Wilkesboro stopped racing, and now I'm 22, and hopefully by 23 we figure something out, because I don't know, like Brandon said, everything looks great on paper, how they try to fix it, and it's just not working. So something's got to figure out. Maybe they throw in our private chat, maybe they throw some type of different thing at us here, just to try to get people involved and see if the product will work slightly different. If it's not working for Cup, make it an Xfinity exclusive, so on and so forth.
I'm glad we're trying new things, but the old man in me is like wishing we would just stick to something and let it cook for 5 years. I know in the business world, you can't really afford to do that sometimes, but man, like I wish we would just stop being little toddlers that like get their new toy. And then after a couple of years, like, I don't want it anymore. And then they have to go somewhere else. Sometimes when I look on Twitter, when I look at X, I feel like that's what I'm looking at. It's just toddlers that don't know what they want. They keep just going from this to this to this to this. And dad just needs to give them something that's steady and healthy and say, look, son, you're going to deal with this for 5 years, good or bad. This is what we paid for.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. You know, I think that I would not want to see us give up on this early. Now there is a part of me that thinks, well, you know, you got whatever it was, 40. I don't know if they had gone to the 43 car standard in '98. I feel like, so maybe it wasn't quite 43 cars back in when Cup was hosting points races in North Wilkesboro. But you know, I feel like if you tried hard enough with everything that they've done to that Speedway, you know, maybe 1 points race a year would be possible. I think Joe mentioned that here in our chat room. We'll get caught up in the chat here right now. Thank you all for your thoughts and your comments. Joe says, I support a Cup Series points race in North Wilkesboro Speedway, maybe one with a good short track package and tire. But that's just it. You know, Brandon, I feel like with the luck that we've had, as soon as we decide to can this event and bring it back to, you know, Charlotte or Texas, that's when they're going to figure out the short track package, and the intermediates are going to suffer for it. And it's just a never ending cycle, like you were talking about.
It's a vicious cycle indeed.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kobe left this message here at the start of the show. Matthew, great to see you back on the air, and we enjoy getting to have your thoughts here tonight. So thank you again. And Joe, echoing that sentiment. I think we were talking backstage actually before we came on. I think your first. Definitely, I know you were on the 2022 season finale show after Phoenix. I don't know if, excuse me, I don't know if you've been on Encore since then or not, but nice to have you here again, and for Brandon to get to work with you.
Yeah, it might be the first time on Encore, I think.
Yeah. And
yeah, it's been a long journey. Our website, I kind of took a step back from on-air stuff. That's why I'm writing stuff. But yeah, couldn't be here without any of you guys, especially Joe and Kobe, keeping me afloat on the writing side of things as well. So happy to be here. Happy to be a part of this for almost 2 years now. That's crazy, guys. 2 years almost with GRID for me personally.
John Bender, I'm glad the Truck Series has 38 entries for Charlotte. We'll get into the truck race in just a few moments here. Also says Kyle Busch reminds me of Kevin Harvick back in the day. Yeah, and Harvick certainly had an interesting weekend as well, filling in, shaking down the number 5 car for Kyle Larson.
I can say Kyle Busch reminds me of Kyle Busch back in the day.
Yeah, that was certainly the Kyle Busch of old that came back out this weekend.
He clearly misses the old Kanye.
Yeah. All right. Adam Lemeries, can Team Pennzoil sweep the All-Star Race and the Indy 500? Some interesting thoughts there. We'll get into some brief thoughts on Indy at the end of the show. There's another speedway that, you know, there's some talks to bring that back with Rockingham. Both Adam and John hopping on that train. Adam, I appreciate the support for Nazareth, although that would certainly take a major miracle with the state that speedway is in. Also says credit to Kyle Larson, 4th after qualifying for the Indy 500. Absolutely. A massive effort on his part, and going to be an even bigger effort this weekend. Hopefully the weather stays clear and he doesn't have any delays or anything traveling back and forth between Indy and Charlotte. And let's see, John, with a few more comments here. I have a feeling the numbers are going to drop next year because not everyone has Amazon Prime. Yeah, well, we've had this discussion before on this show and GRID Tonight a little bit. You know, they'll tell you that more people are subscribed to Prime than cable, but I think when you look at NASCAR's fan base and the demographics, I feel like they're still probably more likely to have a cable subscription or at least a linear television package than be subscribed to a streaming service. So we'll see. We'll see what the numbers look like next year. If they report them, I know that that's been the conundrum with Peacock and IndyCar over the last couple of years. But I have a feeling Amazon's big enough in broadcasting the Cup Series and the model that they've outlined with Thursday Night Football. I have a feeling we'll get our eyes on those numbers next season and see what they are.
Hey, if your grandparents need help getting an Amazon Prime account and learning how to use it, send them my way. We'll help them out. We'll get them ready for next year. It's as easy as that.
Yeah, there you go.
Set my grandmother up with Roku on our end over here. That was
there. You go.
We have Amazon Prime too, but it's one of those things. I'm kind of like, I love the idea of streaming and stuff, but at the same time, like someone like my father who just has cables, loves the sport. He doesn't really complain. He understands the changes that are coming, but you feel bad for them because you know them and you know that it's going to be a lot more of a difficult transition. I know you guys talked about this before, so I'm not going to really go in depth with it. But I think John's right in terms of attendance. It's probably going to drop, but I think part of the reason why they want to bring Rockingham, why they're bringing North Wilkesboro back, is because they know this is coming, and they think a lot of people will probably want to come watch North Wilkesboro or Rockingham if it's on like Prime. Like with NFL last year, I remember so many people were buying, was it Red Zone or something for like a playoff game that was exclusively streaming? Like I think NASCAR's trying to hint at that and see, oh, that might have been a success. Let's try it ourselves. But that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, give the radio affiliates some love and tune into MRN and PRN in between time.
And one more comment from John here. Look, you don't even have a full Cup field every weekend. Well, I think that's a symptom of the charter system and the fact that you can't make any money running an open team these days. Although I think we have 39 on the Coke 600 entry list this week. So the bigger races, you still see some open cars show up. But again, I think that maybe, plays in North Wilkesboro's favor here. If we had been having this conversation 10 years ago, you'd need 43 pit stalls, 43 garage spots. Maybe you only need 36 now, or maybe up to 40 if you get that many open entries. I can't imagine that you would for North Wilkesboro, North Wilkesboro race. But, it's not the full 43 that you would have needed before the charter era began. So, we'll see. I think there's obviously a lot of pieces to still fall into the 2025 puzzle that we don't know yet. But we do know one, and that's the All-Star race is going to be back. So, on that note, just gentlemen, any final thoughts? Brandon, I'll go to you first here. Obviously the heat races got canceled because of the weather, but do you have any ideas for, what we can do in the meantime to try to make this event even better than it already is?
Like I said, I'm not smart enough to figure those things out. Like it's been confusing to me in the past just how the All-Star race works, like throughout the years. Like even when it was at Charlotte, I remember like tuning in during like my high school years and like kind of being out of the sport for like a few years during high school and just hopping in like what's going on? Like the format, like it seems like it's kind of insignificant anyway. It just they do that, and then they race for $1 million at the end of it. It's like I remember like playing Chase for the Cup, and like I would always like fail on the All-Star race because I didn't know that I had to pit. And like just like not knowing, just not really being oblivious to the rules of the All-Star race. So I don't think I'm the one to ask on how you change the All-Star race, because in my history, like it seems like I don't even know how it works half the time.
Matt, do you have any thoughts?
I think the All-Star in general for all professional sport is kind of seeing its way out, and unless there's a real prominent reason to have it. Like I know MLB, I think it's for World Series. Is it home field advantage or something like that?
It used to be, but they got rid of that.
So,
yeah.
Oh, so see, I'm behind. But for that, it's like, besides the $1 million, what else are you really doing? It's kind of it's a lot of confusing stuff, like Brandon was saying, where I was trying to explain to my father, in the All-Star Open, the first two guys get in, and then not just the winner, and then it's only split up, but there's mandatory cautions here for some reason. They're going to throw, you have to put this tire on. It's like, I don't know how to fix it. I think All-Star is inevitably running its course in all professional sport, unless they find a way to keep it where, say, the winner of the All-Star race might get $1 million, but hey, that's an extra playoff point or something like that. I know it doesn't count, but the only thing that would matter would be a playoff point. And drivers are trying their hardest. Don't get me wrong, but there's got to be something out of it besides $1 million for the driver and team. I think that's the way they can additionally go forward and try to fix it, or just change it every year. I don't know. I don't make the decisions like Brandon was saying. We don't make the money to do that. So we're just gonna be talking about it.
Well, here's one change now that I'm thinking about it. Let me just say this. Whenever we first got lights at Charlotte Motor Speedway in 1992, one
hot night. Yeah,
one hot night. $1 million was a lot of money. We're in the year 2024. $1 million is still a lot of money, but it's not as much money as it was in 1992. That would be one thing I would try to change, is put some more purse money in there, because like, look, there's a lot of game shows that'll give you $1 million and more than $1 million because they know what inflation is. NASCAR, you gotta follow suit, and you gotta find a way to do it. I mean, I just wasn't, and even with like the in-season tournament thing for next year, isn't that also just $1 million? Like, okay,
yeah.
What else?
Nick Bromberg tweeted actually last Monday, a week ago, NASCAR has got to start upping prize money for special events past $1 million. Make Denny Hamlin's idea at least $2 million, maybe even $3 or $5 million. The NASCAR All-Star Race has been $1 million since 2003. If the prize was simply adjusted for inflation, it would be $1.7 million next week.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I wasn't thinking with my head like that. Yes, since 2003, but
yeah. Well, but you do have a point, Brandon, because Bill Elliott was winning the Winston Million in the 80s. I think that would be like $3 million nowadays or something.
Yeah.
Another tweet that I saw, which is kind of depressing when you put inflation into that kind of perspective. $1 million doesn't, still a lot of money to any of us, but it doesn't go as far as it used to. Matthew, you want to follow up?
Yeah, I was just going to add, I mean, nowadays, too, to sponsor even like a truck, it's like probably $100,000 a race. So what are you really getting out of $1 million nowadays in the Cup Series, especially with how much more it costs, and obviously with the charter agreement stuff? Maybe do something similar to, is it the Thermal, what they did with Indy? Have the top 5 all get different amounts, but make it like even with the in-season tournament, too. Even if it's, say, $1 million, but I mean, if you want to do the 1.8 million total, like if you adjust for inflation, give the winner, say, 750 or whatever, then give the second 500, and then 250, and then go on from there. So if you're 7th or 8th place with 5 laps to go and make up the ground, you're going to ride around, because the All-Star Race, if you're 2nd to 20th, it did not matter one bit. It only mattered when Logano was ahead for 99.5% of the race. So make it a little bit a podium incentive type thing, just to get the drivers. They're still trying their hardest and more for prize money, All
right. One more thought here from John. Invite guys like Dale Earnhardt Jr., Tony Stewart, and Jeff Gordon. Maybe the ratings will go up. John, I get what you're saying, but I feel like if you do that, you're acknowledging that we have a problem where the stars of yesterday are still, despite the fact that they've been retired for close to a decade now, in Jeff Gordon's case, still more recognizable than the stars of today. And I think the only way that you market the stars of today and try to put them on the map to that level is by, going all in on the Kyle Larsons and Chase Elliott's and Ryan Blaney's of the world, rather than relying on that old star power. Not that it wouldn't be cool to see any of those guys back out there tearing it up in North Wilkesboro. And I'm very annoyed that NASCAR said that Kevin Harvick was eligible to practice the car and qualified and run the Open, but if it came time for the All-Star Race, then he wouldn't have been eligible. That seems quite silly to me, and I feel like if anybody can get away with not technically being eligible or qualifying in the traditional sense, it would be somebody like Kevin Harvick, but that seemed a little inconsistent to me. But again, I don't think that that's something that the sport should be relying on. You should be able to market your current stars in the same way and be able to draw in those ratings and those attendance figures. And so hopefully, again, it's a problem we talk about, in the IndyCar series as well. You have stars that are marketable, just people for whatever reason are not flocking them like they were 20 years ago. And looks like John is in agreement with me there. So that's good. All right. Well, one more point on the All-Star Race, and then we will move on to the Truck Series here. Like you guys both mentioned, obviously non-points event, but if you count it, it is still 2 Cup Series races in a row that Ford has won now after slow start to the year and two very historic tracks of that, Darlington, now North Wilkesboro. So Matthew, obviously, there's no points on the line, just great payday for Joey Logano, but it was a dominant performance. Do you feel like this gives him momentum entering the Coke 600, and should the Ford teams be encouraged with the speed starting to come back?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You have, for as not as bad as Ford started, but the fact that they didn't win anything at all until Brad Keselowski won says a lot about where they were with this new, I know they're a dark horse Mustang. They're a little bit compared to, you've seen Toyota really take off, especially Joe Gibbs Racing with Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell's kind of fallen off a little bit, but at the start of their new specific nose and stuff like that, they've taken off. But this has to be a confidence booster for Ford. I mean, even if you look at the standings, the best Ford so far this year is Ryan Blaney, who hasn't won yet. He's a very consistent driver. Same like with last year. He ended his his 59 race winless streak, I believe it was, at the Coke 600, and then he went on to win the championship. So that shows that the even bigger confidence booster for Ford, if, like, say, Ryan Blaney can get it done. He's having, you can't really say a slump, but when your best driver in your manufacturer is in 8th in points, says a lot for the team that in this next gen era has won both cups and even swept NASCAR last season. So this has to be confidence boost. Like, even Joey Logano finally ending his little drought. I know it doesn't count officially, but I mean, you have like Brad, even Briscoe, Chase Briscoe's been quietly, he's in the playoff race. He's one of the few that can have a good day here too. Any given moment with that Stewart-Haas team, you really don't know what you're going to expect from them. It's either they only make the All-Star Race fan vote, for example, or they all of a sudden come out and they have 3 cars in the top 10. Noah Gragson's performing than we all expected him to, stuff like that. So does Ford have confidence? Yes. Do they win? I couldn't tell you until the last lap of the race after they cross the finish line and the race results are posted officially. Other than that, I couldn't tell you what's going to happen, but this does give a confidence booster, I think, absolutely, for them.
Yeah, for sure. Race car drivers don't really care, it seems, whether it's a points-paying race or not. When they take the checkered flag first, it's a win to them, especially for a guy like Joey Logano. He's not going to come into the Xfinity booth and say, yeah, he's still trying to break that winless streak, because in his mind, it's a done deal. He's already got it done. And yeah, you mentioned, Matthew, about guys like Ryan Blaney. There's your defending series champion who was a late bloomer last year. And this has to be a feel-good time for all-around Ford performance. And I just threw the weird idea at the wall last weekend, or last Monday here on GRID Encore, about, and I don't know how much truth there is in this, but I've just got a little feeling that like there's a little more unity in these manufacturers in the last 10 years than there was in the 2000s. Like, it's hard to explain too. Like, it's something that like I think has just kind of come about in the last 10 years or so, and we saw it back whenever it was more stock cars, when like you really had to rely on your manufacturers being buddies together, 70s, before they got the smaller compact body in 82 or 83 or wherever it was, until now. Especially like with teams like Toyota, but like Ford Performance, Chevrolet, they really are unified together when they see success from one of their others, even if it's a rival Ford team, as much as that could be possible. I think they really draw a lot of energy from others' success in their same manufacturer group.
All right. We will leave it there. Certainly no shortage of things to come away thinking about from All-Star Weekend. And of course, we heard this week that it'll be back once again in North Wilkesboro next year, so we can look forward to that. Hopefully by then we figured out the short track package a little bit and we get an even better show than we've gotten the last 2 years. But I think Matt Weaver said it perfectly. Still surreal to be tweeting about current NASCAR racing happening in North Wilkesboro Speedway. So great job, Marcus Smith, everybody on site, and being dealt another wild card this weekend with the weather and bouncing back from that, making the most of what we were dealt with this weekend. I think still a solid race weekend overall. And like I said, hopefully it just continues to get better from here. We move on now to the Truck Series race that took place this weekend. And again, not something we haven't seen before here on this show. Corey Heim picking up another Truck Series win, and looks like he could be well on his way to another Championship 4 run again. But Brandon, I want to start with you. He's second in points right now to Christian Eckes, who still had a nice strong run, finishing in 6th place this weekend. Do you think Eckes right now is the biggest threat to Corey Heim to stop him from potentially running away with this championship this year?
Yeah, Christian Eckes is super fast, and if anyone's going to take on Corey Heim, it's got to be a guy like him. And you take in his diving technique during the biblical flood there at Wilkesboro. That's got to have some good to it as well, doesn't it? Yeah, it was just a power move there for Corey Heim to take this points race for the Truck Series at Wilkesboro. But Christian finishing P6, he's knocking on the door there on Corey Heim, and they got to look out.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's gonna sound wrong, but I feel like Corey Heim's only person this year that can challenge will be Christian Eckes until something inevitably happens in the championship race, like last year with the whole Savard and Heim thing, where he ends up finishing 3rd or 4th in the playoff standings, even though he was well on his way to a top 2. Ben Rhodes will sneak in, win another championship. Anyway, I think Eckes has quietly been so incredibly strong this year, but with the truck field though, it's like you got these two, you got Christian Eckes, you got Corey Heim, 2 incredibly talented wheelmen that are going at it, that can take this coming week whenever they race again at Charlotte off, and they would still, no matter what does in 3rd and 4th, will still be in the point top 2. That's how just good they've been this year with the consistency of those 2 guys. So Christian Eckes truly is the only threat to Corey Heim this year. And then I think what's going to happen, but if Corey Heim ends up going cup racing, Christian Eckes, if he stays down trucks, I don't know, like we all said with everyone like Hocevar leaving and stuff like that, like with this past year, you thought this was Eckes has quietly been there the entire time. Like I still exist. I'm still winning 2 races. I'm still finishing in the top 5 consistently. So I think Christian Eckes and Corey Heim, it's going to be a battle that it's going to be exciting. I really think, unfortunately, it's the only 2 we should really be focusing on, just because I think the rest of the field is just not on the same level, obviously. But you've seen there's only been, 4 different winners this year? Sanchez and Raja were the only other 2 in truck regulars, right? I think.
Wouldn't surprise me. I don't have the numbers pulled up in front of me here, but I know.
I think
we've had Kyle. I think got 1 right. So
yeah, Kyle had the 1.
Or I think Kyle might have 2.
At least, yeah, because he had the real tree 1. Kyle had Atlanta and Texas in the real tree, and then Chastain got 1. Darlington. So we've had a couple of cup regulars. But yeah, I believe you're right, because Heim has 3 wins, Eckes has 2, Sanchez and Caruth have 1, and then the others are cup guys. So yeah, only 4 truck regulars have won so far this year. Yeah.
And
well, and
even someone like Raja hasn't been as consistent either. Unfortunately, Raja, I believe, where's Raja even in points? Is he like? I think he's down in 7, which isn't bad at all. But it's like Sanchez is in the top 4. It's like it's going to be between those 4 guys, you would think, and highly good too lately. And then Tyler Ankrum, after starting Incredibles, falling off. But
yeah, well, he had a good run this weekend. Yeah. Ankrum bounced back a little bit this weekend. Won stage 2, finished in the top 10. Raja, though, you're right, Matthew. He started with 4 straight top 10s, including that win at Vegas. Only has 1 since then, none since Martinsville. So, he's looking to kind of regain a little bit of that pace. Still 7th in the points, a solid position, and he'll be in the playoffs, obviously, with that win. But still looking for some extra speed out of that Spire truck right now. But yeah, you're right. I think those are definitely the 2 that we have to keep our eye on the most. There are 2 drivers that hadn't had such a great start to their years that have turned things around a little bit this weekend. Grant Enfinger in P2 and Lane Riggs in P3. Boy, did he need a run like that. So, Matthew, I'll go to you on this one here. Do you think that this is something that those 2 drivers in particular can take with them for the rest of the regular season here and try to help turn their seasons around a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, starting with Lane Riggs, I mean, this is a guy I remember Kobe, we were all talking about it sometime last year that a lot of people know this kid's got a lot of talent. It's just ultimately what position he's going to be in, what truck. And he's in arguably some of the best equipment. I mean, that top 2 in the championship 2 years in a row in that equipment, not him, obviously, but Zane Smith. So for him to get a chance, I know he hasn't started well, but him finish 3rd is incredible confidence booster. And we all forget Grant Enfinger was so close to just shocking the world and winning the Truck Series championship. And it's like he's kind of taken a step back, new team and everything. But even with the step back, he's still 8th in points. It's like he's not really far away by any stretch of the imagination. So this is absolutely a confidence booster. I believe this is Grant Enfinger's first top 5 all year, though, which is crazy considering I believe he was 2nd in the championship standings. And like you said, it started off slow, but so did Ben Rhodes last year, and now he's a 2-time Truck Series champion. So it all depends on when you get hot. You can't get hot too early, like maybe Rajah, for example, and then kind of slow back down. But if you're like Grant Enfinger, Lane Riggs right now, you start building that momentum, carry it on. They could both be – I don't know about Lane Riggs, but I think Grant Enfinger is more than capable of winning a championship. Lane Riggs is still young, and I think he's not as experienced yet, but he can get it done, absolutely, too. I think he could win a race. I don't know if he will, but it's all about momentum, the sport is, I feel, so especially in the Truck Series.
Yeah, in any competition, it's all about how and when you peak and where you end up eventually, inevitably plateauing. And then, if you do that in the summer months, you're going to have a hard time. I still put Grant Enfinger in, down to the far into the playoff picture still, of course. Like you said, he's one of those that's still able to do it, and he's got some good pace. Just not so much early on this season, and he's one that I think could turn this top 3 into a more regular occurrence because he is so well versed in all these other types of tracks. Lane Riggs, on the other hand, I think this is the kind of track that they were banking on. We've got to have a good turnout here. We've got to do well because this is Lane's cup of tea. And so they did and turn it into a P3. But look, we don't go to all short tracks all year long, and he's got to find some pace and learn his way around with front row at all the other places we go to on the calendar, or this is not going to work out. And we talked about it last week, Ben. Zane Smith took this truck 2 years in a row and did a mighty fine job. And one can only think not much has changed with this team. So it eventually, you can give them all the equipment you can give them, but it comes down to who's in that driver's seat and the adjustments and the talent that they bring to the table.
Equal career best finish for Lane Riggs in 3rd and career best finish for CR7 Motorsports with Grant Enfinger up in 2nd. So certainly some strong runs for them. Hopefully they can use that momentum to continue to build on that and make this a little bit more of a regular occurrence going forward throughout 2024. Because Brandon, like you mentioned, and Matthew as well, Grant Enfinger really was just one turn away. Maybe if a different driver had been in that situation, might have used the bumper a little bit more to try to take that championship. He was right there at the very end, but
just not his style.
Yeah, not his style, and just a little bit short. But he certainly has the talent to get there. So we'll see if CR7 can build on this strong run, and Lane Riggs as well. Like I said, certainly needed a run like that. Adam, I believe, left a comment here. There we go. Brendan Butterbean Queen in 4th place. Let's talk about him real quick. Awesome run for the Tricon Garage driver making his debut. Brandon, how impressed were you? There was a lot of hype surrounding this kid, obviously, getting this ride announced coming into the North Wilkesboro weekend. How impressive was he finishing 4th in his Truck Series debut here?
That's pretty cool. And honestly, with the name, without the Butterbean there, it was not clicking with me for a minute. So as soon as I saw Butterbean, I was like, Butterbean. Yeah. He has one of the most extraordinary party in the backs mullets you've ever seen. Was able to see that in person out at Five Flags once upon a time, and it was just wonderful. But yeah, he's a fast wheel man. P4 for Tricon. I hope he gets more opportunities, and maybe can be kind of like a junior motorsports thing with the way they're working with Carson Quaffle.
Sorry, I muted myself. Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, these are the type of things similar to like Lane Riggs. And I love that NASCAR now is bringing in not just the road course ringers like Boris said would randomly be at Sonoma, stuff like that, but now being able to see track specialists take over. And obviously, like you said, with Junior Motorsports Quabbel, that's how Josh Berry, now he's a cup driver, a multiple time Xfinity race winner. How you get into it. It's like you just got to give these guys a chance. And regardless of how great Tricon's equipment is, I mean, it's still, I think Brendan Quinn would have been in the top 5 no matter what top-tier equipment he could have been in. And he drove his tail off, and you saw how great he did and the atmosphere around it. So now I'd like to see him on a track that he's not as used to, similar to what motorsports with SVG, Xfinity, seeing him go to tracks you never would even imagine 2 years ago him be at. Like now I kind of want to see this happen like it did with Josh Berry coming and even when he was filming with like Michael Annett a few years ago. Now he's racing everywhere, doing well pretty much everywhere he can. I want to see that with some of these guys because there's a lot of talent in motorsports that is just even though he's a little popular. Same thing with Bubba Pollard too, making his Xfinity debut a couple weeks back. It's like there's a lot of talent in motorsport. They got to be found, right place, right time. And we have seen a lot of opportunities that it has been right place, right time. Obviously, in the last couple of weeks with Bubba Pollard and now Brendan Quinn finishing in the top 5. I mean, that's no joke. That's to finish top 5 your first ever time being in a truck like that. I give him a lot of props. Absolutely.
Yeah, great run for Queen, and we'll see. Obviously, no shortage of talent there, so hopefully this turns into some more regular opportunities for him. And you got a great example there, Matthew, like you mentioned, Josh Berry and even Bubba Pollard this year. You know, sometimes, you know, that talent is out there. It's just overlooked in terms of not being on the weekly tour for a NASCAR National Series, and all they need is just that one opportunity to prove it. They can hang with drivers that are regulars in this series, and Butterbean Queen, no exception right there. So, like I said, looking forward to seeing what he can do in any future opportunities for Tricon or otherwise. And we will leave a North Wilkesboro weekend there. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us once again. We're going to let you go here, but before we do, don't get to do this as often anymore, but what is your one shining moment? I'll give you the entire weekend. You know, Indy 500 qualifying is going on right now. What stood out to you most from this weekend in the world of motorsports?
I mean, there's so much. I mean, obviously, like if you go to F1, for example, I know we didn't talk about it, but McLaren and Lando Norris they're finding their speed. That's pretty cool. But I kind of want to focus on what we talked about, and that's in the truck series. I have to give a shout out to not only Brendan Queen, but Dawson Sutton made his truck debut too. These guys are wheelmen in the late models, cars, stuff like that. They win a lot of races down, whether it's Cars Tour, stuff like that. So for them to see, we had 2 guys make I believe it was just 2, make their truck debut. So shout out to Team Hornet Days, Dawson Sutton as well. Obviously, you know why, Ben, I'd be shouting that out. But young kid too, has got a lot of talent. I think same thing with Brendan Queen. You give these guys the opportunity, they're going to show up, just like we have seen a short track specialist like Josh Berry. Eventually, once he's given more opportunities, I think Carson Quabb was going to win a race in NASCAR. It's just all about when. It's not an if, it's a when. And I think for these guys, so that's my one shining moment, is just spotlighting the debuts of 2 young, incredible race car drivers that we're going to be talking about, I feel, for a long time, especially, and at least doesn't go as well as planned. But, you know, you have to start somewhere, and that's what it is. So, but, and for that, and then Indy, obviously Kyle Larson too. I think last thing I promise, and I'll let you guys continue on with ARCA, stuff like that. Nothing has been better for IndyCar marketing than having Kyle Larson do this, because you don't see much about IndyCar marketing at all. I think I told you guys I'm more animated in the group me than with you guys, but the only commercials I've ever seen for Indy, I feel, are like the Shell, like a gas commercial. And then there was one with, is it Ferrucci? Who's 5 Hour Energy? Is it Ferrucci?
Fittipaldi's running that.
Fittipaldi.
Who am I talking about?
It changes up all the time.
Wrong name, but but still, it's like those not even indie related shows or advertisements, but a superstar in NASCAR, superstar in motorsport. That's pretty much a big star too. Is IndyCar marketing the heck out of that is great, and hopefully we can do a trade once and get Scott McLaughlin on a road course or a Cup car somewhere with Penske. Please, like you got to have that too coming. But that's all I'm gonna say. That there's a lot of star moments. Very be a part of this on a Monday night. It's a little warm where I am, as you can see, sweating a little bit, but I appreciate it. Always a pleasure, Ben. Always a pleasure, Brandon, and everyone watching as well. Thank you for letting me be here, and you'll see my written stories still for the rest of the year. So
appreciate all you do for us, man, and thanks again for taking time out of your evening to join us. And I'm with you. Those are some great picks, and Kyle Larson pulling off the double. We'll look forward to that. Of course, we'll have a full recap of all the action this week with our Grid Live programming, and then on Encore week from now. And I'm with you. I would love to see Scott McLaughlin in a Cup car. I think Penske is obviously, with Ganassi selling to Trackhouse, Penske is the only team that has cars in both series. I feel like it would be so logical for the Will Powers or Joseph Newgardens or Scott McLaughlins of the world to try the double, or at least get in a Cup car on a road course. We've seen a lot of NASCAR guys try it with Kyle, obviously, and now Kurt Busch a decade ago, and Tony Stewart back in the day, although Stewart had some IndyCar experience before then. But I would love to see one of the IndyCar guys try to come over here and run the Coke 600. I think that would be just as spectacular from a marketing perspective. So lots to keep an eye on here. But again, Matthew, thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully it's not a year and a half this time between appearances on the Encore show, but we'll let you go. But hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right. All right. And one more comment here before we move on from Adam. Look at what Joe Gibbs Racing is doing regarding Loudon bringing Justin Bonsignor, who competes in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Series. Yes, that is some massive news. And like I said, I mean, don't be shocked if he's a contender for the win. I think that is going to be a very special moment. And hats off to Joe Gibbs for giving him the opportunity, because I think that, again, what Matthew was just talking about, giving these drivers that, aren't regulars in the top three series that opportunity sometimes, you can really be surprised by what they do. But I think anybody that knows Justin Bonsignor, anybody that knows what he's done in the modified tour, excuse me, I think, again, you want to talk, we talked about Allgaier last week. What Bonsignor's done in the mods, I think, deserves Hall of Fame consideration by the time his career's all said and done. And he could only add to that resume by going out in an Xfinity car and doing something special later this year.
Yeah, I figured that might be your one shining moment coming up here soon, considering how excited you were for it, and all on the mod tour, and Justin Bonsignor and Loudon, and it's all working together for you, isn't it?
Yeah. I was absolutely stoked to hear that. And again, like I said, I know we don't do pick a winner for the series we cover here on Encore, but I'd be really tempted to pick Bonsignor for this one, because I mean, the equipment that he's going to have and the track that he's running this race at, I just think it's the perfect combination for, I mean, again, maybe not as spectacular as SVG winning a Cup race on debut, but I wouldn't put it past Justin Bonsignor to do what Ty Gibbs did a few years ago and win an Xfinity race on debut. I don't think anybody that knows Bonsignor should be surprised if he's at least not in contention for the win when the time comes. So great to hear about this weekend, and certainly something I'm looking forward to. All right. Well, real quick, we're going to give you a rundown here of the ARCA East results at Flat Rock Speedway. To be honest, not too much to say about this race here tonight. Connor Zilic did lead every lap, did one better than Joey Logano, or I guess 49 fewer, considering it was only 150 laps. But you know what I mean. He led every lap in the East Series race here this weekend. William Sawalich picked up one spot from his starting position, passing Gio Ruggiero, who fell back to third. Tony Breininger, solid night for her. Got the free pass late. Only a couple of cautions throughout this race, but ended up finishing on the lead lap in fourth. And then you see Zachary Tinkle, another top five for him. So well done there. And as you see the rest of the rundown, I'll have the last car article out in the next couple of days covering this race. But in the meantime, congratulations again to Connor Zilic. Again, another very highly rated, highly talented young driver trying to work his way up through the ranks. Excited to see what the future holds for him.
Yeah, a lot of talent.
Yeah. All right. Well, Brandon, I think it's that time of the show now once again. Matt, you had some great picks, but what's your one shining moment from what we saw this race weekend?
My gaze is fixed on IndyCar for this weekend in motorsports, and how can it not? Kyle Larson going out there as a rookie and setting that 1 lap speed and getting the new 4 lap speed set by Scotty Mack. What a weekend! And it's only getting started. So that Kyle Larson has to get my one shiny moment. And if the 45th president of the United States ruins this weekend, I'm about to lose my marbles.
Oh man, I wasn't going to bring it up. I saw you.
I'm telling you, no politics involved. No politics involved.
Well, that's the key here.
Yeah.
That is I think the really important thing.
Yeah, I don't care one way or the other.
People on both sides are going to politicize it and say, he shouldn't be there for this reason or that reason. I'm just looking at it solely from a logistics perspective here.
Yeah.
The stories that I've heard, and I wasn't at the 2020 Daytona 500. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit different, when he's a sitting president versus a former president who's running for president again. But that's the other thing. Like, shouldn't he be worried about the campaign that he's trying to run right now? I mean, I don't know. I have a really bad feeling about, trying to bring him in there, given the importance of this weekend to what, you were just talking about, and what Matthew was just talking about, Kyle Larson and the security that's going to have to be heightened because of that. I really don't think it's a good idea for a whole multitude of reasons, none of which have anything to do with being Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, Trump fan, Trump hater, whatever. I think it's not a good idea because of the logistics surrounding what's going on this weekend. I think it could just lead to an absolute nightmare.
Listen, I think the protocol is like if you're a standing president, that all the airports around that radius are shut down. I think it even goes for former. Like that's got to be a logistical nightmare. We want to get Kyle Larson there. The only way, the cool way of this turning out for good would be if the 45th president gave him a ride from Indiana, also attended Indy, gave him an executive ride over to Charlotte. Now that would make a movie. They would make a movie out of that, and there would be actors, one acting as Kyle Larson, one acting as the name we shall not name, so we don't get doxxed or banned or whatever. I don't know. Well,
but would that be in the motorcade on the limo, right? There's no way he can drive that quickly, right? I mean, he's got to go. I mean, it's not the sitting president, so I guess it wouldn't be Air Force One, but
yeah, it'll be like when Elvis met Reagan, like what was it? Elvis Nixon movie that they made
maybe
years ago. Yeah, I mean, it'd be a legendary like historical what do you call it? Historical drama movie. Yeah, it'd be great.
It'll give us no shortage of NASCAR. I can't even say Twitter anymore. NASCAR X discourse this weekend.
I actually want to write this fiction now. I want to write the script for this.
Oh man,
give it a good story treatment.
What a world we're living. I keep telling myself it's less than 6 more months. That's all we have to. But then it's not going to be over the first week in November.
It's never ogre, Ben. It's never ogre.
Oh man. Oh brother. Well,
what's your one shiny moment?
But I share your one shining moment. The first part of that. The second part, I don't know. It's going to be interesting for sure. But well, Adam mentioned it in the chat. Obviously Justin Bonsinger, that whole deal coming together, that is absolutely spectacular. Like I mentioned, really looking forward to that. But I'm with you. This is my favorite time of year. I always say there are 3 days throughout the year that I look forward to more than any other. That's Christmas, Easter, and the Sunday before Memorial Day. And I love the spectacle of Monaco, even though the racing there is more of a parade nowadays. There's hardly any overtaking. I still think, qualifying is one of the most spectacular. It's the most spectacular qualifying weekend of the year. One, because it's the most important, but two, because, I love seeing the cars go through the streets, at those angles and the speeds that they do. It's an absolute spectacle to watch. And then you roll right into the Indianapolis 500 and, added hype this year just because of what's going on with Larson and everything. And that's only going to add to the greatest spectacle in racing, as they say. And then you roll right into NASCAR's longest night after that. Yeah. I mean, it's a great time of year to be a race fan, and there's no shortage of storylines. Like I mentioned, and also want to give a shining moment to Marcus Smith and all the crew over at North Wilkesboro. We touched on it briefly earlier in the show, but the weather has not been kind really to NASCAR or to IndyCar, because a lot of the practice was cut short because of weather this past week. But the crew at North Wilkesboro especially, they were dealt a massive blow with that weather and that flooding that we saw, and they did a great job bringing all that gravel in to try to continue to make it a good experience for the fans. And I think they did just that. And hopefully the show was better in person. I think it always is to an extent better in person than it is on television. But, like I said, the package that we have here isn't perfect, but it is still surreal to say that we are racing once again North Wilkesboro Speedway with NASCAR. So that is my one shining moment for tonight. And also looking forward to this weekend. No shortage of things to be excited about for sure. And that is going to wrap it up for Encore tonight. So thank you for sticking with us on a bit of a longer evening. Thanks again to Matthew Bro for making his appearance, and Josh Birch for helping us out as always with F2 and F3 coverage. And be sure, if you're watching us, to subscribe to the Grid Network. If you haven't already, follow us on all of our social media platforms. X, I still am going to keep calling it Twitter until the day I die. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn, Threads, and most importantly, right here on YouTube. Thank you again for 1,000 subscribers. Here's to the next 1,000. If you really liked what you saw tonight, you can take a few minutes after the show to consider investing in our Patreon. Join Colin, Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew in investing in Grid Network to help keep us on the air throughout 2024. Our long-term goal of $500 per month will allow us to begin attending races on site on a more regular basis, expanding our coverage for you, the viewers. You can also become a member now through the Grid Network YouTube channel, or if you'd rather make a one-time donation instead, you can visit, there we go, you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below as well. You can buy a coffee specifically for your favorite on-air talent. Any amount will help us continue to grow our motorsports media outlet, or like I said, if you're watching on YouTube, we now have super chats and super thanks features enabled as well. Now on Wednesday, don't miss Grid Tonight once again with Josh, Kobe Lambeth, and Matt White. Women in Motorsports will be back this week as well. Most likely that show will go up on Friday morning. Myself, Joe Samaniego, Isha Azim, and Emily Sharp, part of that now, so stay tuned for that. And of course, more coverage this weekend as always from the Grid Network pre-race wrap-up, and then we'll do it all over again with Encore to follow. Hopefully the weather cooperates this year and we have a more normal schedule for you all. But Brandon, this is the time of the show where normally I ask you for your final thoughts, but I want to give you a chance real quick before we go off the air, since you're not on the Grid Live shows very often. What was your take on what we saw with the Fast 12 and the Fast 6, and then the last row shootout, a bit of a heartbreaker for Nolan Siegel at Indianapolis?
Yeah, but you heard Graham Rahal say it, like, you're going to need to remember this kid's name because he is going to be back here and he's going to be winning at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So absolutely haven't seen the last of Nolan Siegel. And we know that here on the Encore show. I mean, we talk about him all the time as a winner. But yeah, it was a fantastic weekend. Unfortunately, I can't say too much because I just drank a lot of coffee and we are going over on this show and I have to run. So I am so sorry. I'm excited for the Indianapolis 500. It's more than just a race. It's the thrill of human emotion. And that's exactly what it is.
I won't keep you too long then, but I appreciate your thoughts there. And I share your sentiment. I was pulling for Siegel to get in just because, obviously we know on the Encore show what a great talent he is, and he will be back. It's just a shame that, somebody has to miss the show. But then again, that's part of a tradition in Indianapolis. The fastest 33, you had Rahal down there again. You had a former winner in Marcus Ericsson. It doesn't matter who you are. You have to earn your spot. And I know Siegel will be back to do just that in the future. So we'll look forward to that. Look forward to a great weekend coming up. For Joshua Birch, for Matthew Bro, for Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you for watching the Encore show. We will see you next week. Enjoy the greatest weekend in the motorsports calendar. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.